De 2 første rallyrundene.
Jeg veldig fornøyd. Jeg ligger veldig godt an i VM, og det bra start, så beste noensinne.
Sa Petter Solberg, reporter her. Kristian Myrseth i Sportsstudio. Bengt Eigil Ruud.
Her NRK Dagsnytt klokka 11. Storbritannia vil ha hastesamtaler med flere land for å drøfte planen om et samarbeid mellom den arabiske liga og FN om en felles fredsstyrke for Syria. Det sier den britiske utenriksministeren William Hague, som også ønsker velkommen planen om å opprette en vennegruppe for Syria. Storbritannia varsler at landet vil spille en aktiv rolle i gruppa som skal møtes i Tunisia om halvannet veke. Samtidig ser russiske styresmakter at det er nødsynt med en våpenhvile i Syria før det kan komme på tale å sende inn en fredsstyrke. Kunnskapsministeren sine tiltak for å hjelpe skolene å stoppe mobbing er for få og kommer for sent. Det mener Mette Hanekamhaug i Fremskrittspartiet. En nasjonal undersøking har nettopp vist at mange norske skoler svikter mobbeofre. Kristin Halvorsen sitt utspill om en sjekkliste for skolene er ikke nok, mener Hanekamhaug.
Det er heller ikke å holde og skylde på kommunene og snakke om at en sjekkliste nå skal holde. For 2 år siden foreslo vi i Fremskrittspartiet at alle skoler skulle ha en tiltaksplan eller antimobbingprogram på skolen, nettopp for å sørge for kontinuerlig fokus og jobbing mot dette problemet. Da stemte regjeringspartiene mot forslaget vårt.
Kvinner som er siktet for å ha drept samboeren sin i Vestby i Akershus natt til søndag, vedgår at det var hennes skyld at mannen døde. Men ifølge VG Nett har hun forklart at det ikke skjedde med vilje. Den siktede 31-åringen er innlagt på sykehus og blir trolig fremstilt for varetekt i dag. Politiet stadfester at den 30 år gamle tyske samboeren ble drept med kniv. De 10 siste årene har norske styresmakter solgt forsvarseiendommer for 5 milliarder kroner. 60% av salgssummen er ført tilbake til forsvarsbudsjettet, det skriver Nasjonen. Bygningene som er solgt omfatter alt fra små enkeltbygninger og utedoer til store leirer, fjellanlegg og bunkerer. I tillegg kommer flere natur- og friluftsområder. Tyrkisk politi har arrestert kring 100 personer med tilknytning til kurdiske opprørere i dag. Det melder flere TV-kanaler i Tyrkia. Den landsfemnende operasjonen var rettet mot fagforeningsledere og aktivister. Politiet tok seg inn i kontor og heimer i 9 ulike byer. De pågrepne var medlemmer av KCK, en kurdisk fagforening som tyrkiske styresmakter mener er en grein av det forbudne kurdiske arbeiderpartiet PKK. Det var notert kulderekord i den russiske hovedstaden Moskva i natt. I løpet av natta var det kaldere enn minus 30. Det er 100 år siden det har vært så kaldt i Moskva på denne tida av året. Og det har også vært uvanlig mye snø i den russiske hovedstaden denne vinteren. NRK Dagsnytt, Silje Sande.
Du hører på NRK Alltid Nyheter. I studio Kari Ørstavik.
Og vi fortsetter i Hellas, der nasjonalforsamlingen har vedtatt en ny sparepakke. Det førte til store demonstrasjoner og opptøyer i hovedstaden Aten. Folk er sinte, sier BBCs korrespondent i landet, Mark Lowen.
There is the feeling here among many Greeks that their politicians are simply not listening to them, that despite the evident anger, the evident opposition to austerity, the political class here continues with the same path. Now, of course, the Greek government is in a very, very difficult position because they're facing a growing wave of social unrest from the streets, and yet they are under pressure to cut ever further, cut ever deeper, because if they do not do so, they will be cut loose by the European Union and International Monetary Fund and not receive those that vital bailout money. So the Prime Minister, Lucas Papademos, very aware in his comments about how angry Greeks are, about how much pain and misery will be inflicted by this bailout package, but really not a strategy that is likely to change in the coming months.
So no matter how out of step the politicians seem to be with the general population, there is still this consensus. Are there any alternative strategies? Is there any political opposition among the political establishment to this formula?
There is a left-wing parliamentary grouping here called Syriza, which simply says that the entire strategy is wrong, that Greece needs to default in a disorderly fashion, but potentially stay within the euro. Some say that actually Greece should leave the euro, but they say that actually Greece is sacrificing simply too much to stay in the euro. It is in its 5th consecutive year of recession. Unemployment figures for November now soared above 20%. Among young Greeks, 1 in 2 almost are out of work. That is the price that Greece is paying to stay in the euro. So inevitably there is political opposition to all of this. But this coalition government which is in place, which is now getting shakier and shakier, I must say, is going to follow the strategy that it is following at the moment, because it has entered into this agreement with the European Union and International Monetary Fund, without which Greece would go bankrupt next month. The big question is, when will the next crisis point come for Greece? It has got over this latest hurdle but many are asking, is this simply kicking the can down the road, and will Greece finally feel that it is sacrificing just too much? Will the European Union finally feel that Greece cannot live up to these commitments, and this country will simply throw in the towel?
And in terms of sacrifice, I mean, inevitably when we talk about stories like this, we tend to focus on the capital city of a country, but away from Athens, in the towns and villages, what sort of impact are all these cuts having on people's lives?
Well, there are stories about children at school whose parents cannot afford food for them for school lunches. So they are some children in schools in villages have fainted at school. There are charities here who are handing out food parcels. People can't afford healthcare anymore, so there are free sort of ad hoc health clinics that are being set up. So this is very much a crisis which is affecting the whole of Greece. We focus very much on Athens in our reporting. Athens makes up half the population of Greece, but it is a crisis which spreads its tentacles to every corner of this country, up north to the islands as well, and people feel the heat very much. And really, as you walk around this city but also this country, the signs of the broken society are everywhere. Homelessness on the rise. There is a new class called the new homeless. These are middle class people who last year had a nice job or a nice flat and are now reduced to begging in soup kitchens and sleeping in free hotels. It is a crisis which is feeling its effect very much on ordinary Greeks, on the middle class Greeks, who say that the crisis is not of their making, and that is why they're so angry. They're angry with their notoriously corrupt politicians here. They're angry with the rich, but increasingly they're angry with the European Union as well. They say, for foisting a package of unbearable pain and misery on an already squeezed nation.
Det sa BBCs korrespondent i Hellas, Mark Lowen, til sin kollega Mark Whittaker. Og den nye sparepakka i Hellas skal sikre utbetaling av nye krisemidler, men økonom Yanis Varoufakis, som økonom og jobber ved universitetet i Aten, ikke sikker på at de nye sparetiltakene vil ha noen god virkning.
I'm very much afraid that there is absolutely no chance that the new bailout is going to work according to its own criteria. And the only criterion that really matters is whether it will manage to arrest the debt crisis.
What's the alternative? I mean, what do you suggest as an alternative here, given that the IMF, the EU, everybody together has a vested interest in Greek surviving and Greek stabilising? What else can they come up with?
The truth is that the great source of economic pain in Europe is the banking system, which should be unified. It is quite absurd to have separate banking systems, each one of them quasi-insolvent, in a common currency area. The second thing we need to do is we need to unify part of the public debt. At the moment we have a common currency area, and at the same time each member state has its own completely separable debt to everybody else. That's inviting speculation and a domino effect. And the third thing we need to do is coordinate investment policies, so the deficit states that are also debt-ridden because they're deficit states are given an opportunity to get out of this mess through growth and not through 1,000 cuts.
But aren't a lot of those things that you talk about there, the taking out of the debt on the greater burden on the EU as a part of the individual states, aren't those contingent upon trust in the individual states? Isn't this what the Germans and others say, that when Greece shows that it can be trusted in these circumstances, then there's a possibility that those other things might come to pass?
This is quite right. There must be something else other than trust and willingness to conform to rules and regulations. That is the matter with the Eurozone. The problem with Greece in the last 2 years is not a lack of willpower on the part of the Greek government to implement the changes, the reforms, and the deficit reduction program. The fact of the matter is that it is